What I do and have done for a number of years, I innovate with glass, and it's part art, it's part science. I was going to university and still taking high school chemistry, trying to pass. But today, we use chemistry and we use so many different aspects of art and science when we innovate. Looking at some of the solar panels, with the last speaker, one of the things that we're working on is a cast form in glass that holds light in the solar cell more efficiently. We work as artists and designers, but we can also play with producible materials in glass that really come out of art. I want to kind of talk about who we are before I get into some pictures. We innovate, and we innovate through collaboration. We innovate through unity. If you came to my studio, it's a mini United Nations. We have everybody. We have Muslims, we have Jews, we have straight, we have gay. We have people from all over the world, and that's part of what our glass looks like. So we become a very multinational, multicultural company. Some of what we do, we work in the field of interior design and exterior design in terms of architecture, and we talk about design in a building, in a space, but because we use light, we're, a vehicle or a chalice for light. So we design these things, and you contrive it, and you think that you've designed something that is just going to be like so. Our clients want exactly this, and we give them that, and then light is different on every day. So we have no control on the effect of what we're doing, and that's the beauty of it. Our foundation of what we do comes from art, and out of art comes design, and we're very, very comfortable in the world of design because it offers constraints. And those constraints are a story or a theme. Constraints I find very exciting because it gives us a function or a challenge on what we're going to achieve. Constraints also are really, really frustrating because glass breaks, and it breaks all the time. We have to meet these incredible confrontational deadlines, interiors or exteriors or occupancy permits, and glass has a mind of its own, and you could do the same thing for 20 years and then it doesn't work, and it breaks in tempering or it breaks in the kiln. Glass is a natural material. It's an enduring material. I'm going to talk about that from a sustainability point of view. One of the constraints that we deal with on a daily basis is we need clients, we need venues, and above all, it costs money, and that's always a challenge for what all of us are doing. Through the foundation of art, we create a focus of design, and then we have to produce what we've invented or innovated, and that comes through production. So we're 30 to 40 people, depending on what we're doing. We have a 53,000 square foot studio in Vancouver, and we do work all over the world. I've had the opportunity to work with a wide range of very interesting people. I've had the experience to have a lot of heroes in my life, both in the world of glass and art, and within my family, grandparents, parents, but also through my kids. My background in glass started out really as a kid. My grandfather was a watchmaker in Winnipeg and sold blown glass from Italy. So I've been around glass all my life, and I didn't realize that you could actually learn about making glass and fabricating and designing. I was a hippie, and when I was about 27, I kind of figured out I got to make a living somehow. And so I picked a material that absolutely nobody needs. So people want glass, but for what we do, they really don't need it. But we found a niche for that. We do a real variety of work. I went and I apprenticed with traditional stained glass artists from Ireland and realized I didn't want to paint churches and do that, and I totally respect the history of stained glass and I love it, but I wanted to do something contemporary and modern, and had the opportunity to study with some German architectural glass artists and designers from Costa Boda, and went to the Pilchuck Glass School near Seattle. I wanted to design and work with glass that really reflected the human scale. One of the things about architecture and public art, I really wanted something that was tactile and touched, what related to people on an individual basis. So a lot of our work evolved from doing like leaded glass or colored glass and into cast glass. And so I developed a language of casting, and I say I, but it's really a team. When we started casting glass, I hired a ceramic engineer to build us a big kiln. And that kiln sat in our studio for about 2 years because we had no idea what to do with this thing. It really came down to that there was no molds available to do large-scale casting. Even though it's a medieval technique done in a modern way, we didn't have inert molds that would not expand or contract differently than the rate of expansion of glass. So, we really broke a lot of glass. We've broken like tons of glass in terms of innovating, what we've done. But we really have become the masters of what we set out to do, and we need more equipment and more tools to do what we want, to push envelopes. We designed a language of mold making that really didn't exist. And you see the language of cast glass that we've worked on literally all over the world today. Our studio is about limited craft. We are romantics in the sense that we actually make something. We design something and we actually make it. And in this world, I just think that's really an incredible opportunity, and we're very lucky to be able to have that tangible experience of designing something and making it, although some of our jobs extend almost 10 years in terms of designing it and building it. Some of our work is public art, as we're showing, where we're hired as artists to do public art. This is a glass iceberg for the airport in Winnipeg, and Winnipeg is really cold in the winter, so we thought we'd remind Winnipeggers how cold it is by designing a glass iceberg. And they loved it. On the environmental story, which we never got to tell, there was going to be a pool of water underneath that. We wanted the iceberg to melt and drip, but given that the connection with the oil industry and the airline industry, we kind of thought maybe that might not be a good story. We work in what I call sensitive environments in terms of office space, where we are working with the psychology of space and how it interacts with people on a day-to-day basis. Our goal is really to make the world a more beautiful, a better place. So it's very important about how we work with light. In some respects, we provide artistic shading in a workspace, but we also bring light into a workspace that also connects with the amount of energy that an office would need, because we're not creating barriers with drywall and solid materials. Part of our constraints is construction schedules. Everybody orders things at the last minute, and we make glass one sheet at a time, and it's not mass production. I did launch a production glass that we've licensed to a company called Guardian Glass. They're a raw glass manufacturer, and they make literally millions of square feet of window glass a day. So we have worked with different efficiencies where we're using post-industrial recycled glass. Most of the glass that we use is 20-25% post-industrial recycled. We work in lighting. We really collaborate with the widest reaches of people, from developers to individuals from all walks of life. A couple of years ago, we started talking about unity through design, and we launched a Unity series that talked about universality of different people, different religions, different lifestyles, and how through design that we're able to get along, that we're able to put our differences aside. And that led us to our biggest project to date. It's for the airport in Doha. HOK Architects hired us to design literally 5 lineal miles of glass for the airport. We did many iterations, from very Western design to Islamic design. And through the Unity series, we developed a series of Islamic patterns that tell a story of perfection through mathematics, that tell a story about unity, and also tell a story of peace through perfection. These patterns also talk about innovation. The glass that you see is a laminated glass, and we developed a technique of printing on 2 surfaces of glass. And since it's laminated, there's 4 surfaces of glass. We're able to print on 3 of the 4 surfaces. So what that did was it created an opportunity for a micro, meso, and macro panel. So depending where you are, it's different. And that's always been a challenge with designing something that looked good from a jewelry point of view and an architectural point of view. When you get far away, those patterns turn into circles, and when you get really far away, they turn into flowers. So it's really a story of perfection and really unity. So my right-hand person in the design studio is a Muslim, and I'm Jewish. We get along, and we get to talk about things in a lot of different ways. One of our engineers is from Iran, another one's from the Philippines, another's from India, Hungary, Serbia, Croatia, and they get along, which is kind of interesting. Everybody brings a little bit of something to the table, and our potluck lunches are really interesting. One of the designers yesterday spoke about truthful design, and I think that's really, really important. In a cultural situation like this, we have to talk about the truth. Part of the rules of engagement with geometric Islamic design is you can't stagger the images. The lines have to join up. So there's miles of glass that perfectly line up. And if they didn't line up in the culture, we'd have to frame it. So it's very essential that this works. And throughout all these literally miles of glass, our tolerances in Canada were metric, +0, -1.5 millimeters. It's an unbelievable tight tolerance. And we did some water features in the airport as well. We do a lot of water features. We started working on mostly interiors, but then, we wanted to kind of branch out and do more exterior work. And, we've been getting some facades. This is a facade in New York for a building called 11 Times Square. It's a decorative facade. This is a corrugated glass. It's a whole city block in New York. We're hiding a parking garage in a public space. Some lighting. We get to play in a lot of different fields, and it's really quite interesting because everything pushes a different development. We deal with craft. We have artisans from all over the world. We make what we do. We carve it by hand. Some things are carved on a CNC. It's designed by hand, and no matter what kind of computer systems that we're using. But what's going to happen in the future? How is craft and the art of making something going to be manifested tomorrow? As technology moves along, the tactile need to make something for people to express themselves will be matched with whatever technology has to offer. And I really think that creative minds will be able to make that work. I don't know how, but I look at different kinds of robotic equipment in glass factories. In those situations, yes, people are replaced by machines. In many ways, it's a lot safer. But in the art of making things, it's still that human expertise. There's experience and there's expertise. And that experience drives innovation. So, we do need tools. We have sheets of glass that are giant. You look at the Apple stores, they have really pushed the envelope for the biggest panels of glass. So, the world in glass is changing. But it all is very medieval. What I'm showing right here is a digital print of glass powders applied to glass with an inkjet printer, and the powders are melted onto the glass when the glass is tempered. If you look at the stained glass windows that are 800 years old, 1,000 years old, it's really the same technique, except it's done by hand. Minerals, chemicals, pigments, colored glass are ground up, powders are laid on the glass, they're fired in a kiln, they're melted on, and color is produced on glass. This is a modern way of doing a stained glass window. It's not the same, but it's not meant to be the same. Part of what it does is it makes design and glass very accessible. And as it becomes accessible, it relates to the human scale so that glass as an art form can be appreciated by literally the masses. And I think that's the point of public art versus private art. The High Line in New York, a bitmap of the Hudson River. This is another digital print. This is a dedication in Vancouver to the Komagata Maru. This photo is 100 years old, and we cleaned it up in Photoshop and printed it, and this is dedicated to Sikh migrants who were not allowed into Canada because of a white-only policy 100 years ago. We've been doing texture for 30 years. And then one day we said, well, let's not do texture anymore. Let's kind of twist things up a bit. So we developed a way of casting glass to keep it both clear and form it in the same ovens that make the glass hot. And if the glass gets hot, it gets soft. If it gets soft, it gets textured. And that's how we produce pattern. Well, we changed it up. So we make the glass hot and cold to create a 3D form in glass. And we defy gravity by doing this. And it plays with light in a great way. So we're trying to shake up what we do in terms of making glass and creating environments. So what the three-dimensional glass does that's clear, it works like a sundial. Again, it goes back to real medieval approaches to design. It really is a play on light, and light throws incredible shadows. This is just an example. It's kind of cropped a little bit off, but you're seeing light reflecting off the glass and through the glass. It's an incredibly dynamic form, and it has many constraints because we have to temper glass or make it a safety glass or toughen it, and we really need our own oven in order to perfect this. We've done some prototypes for a few different companies that talk about innovation. We've done some prototypes for Apple. We may see this as in the future for some work with Apple. They're very interested in what other people are doing in terms of innovation. We are constrained by equipment, and if we had more equipment and what we need to make the glass structural as a safety glass, we'd be dangerous. So this is some new prototypes. This is a surreal fluted pattern. Fluted glass has been around for 100 years. We thought we'd make it bigger, twist it up. Those arcs are 4 inches apart. So yesterday we got a approval for a facade of a building in Houston with this pattern. So this is the first prototype, and that will probably be the first major project that we do with this kind of glass. And it will twist light in an incredible way. So we get to play around with other things. This is from Microsoft, where we laminate veneers with LEDs behind it. We work on public art. The globe was for an aquarium. So when we compete on public art, it's art for art's sake. That job we got fired off of. So sometimes it's great to win something and lose it. It's a blessing in disguise sometimes. We also work in environmental ways. This is a vinyl mesh we laminate in glass, and it appears copper to the viewer on the inside. It's transparent, and this works as solar shading and works on heat gain for facades. So we're able to work in the design community, designing a decorative glass, artistic glass, that also will cool a building. So we really try and apply different science to what we're doing. It's quite exciting in the sense that we're always coming up with new opportunities. People come to us with all kinds of products and ideas. There's a new glass that Corning makes that's 0.5 millimeter thick, and it's incredibly strong. And they're looking for ways to use it. Most of our cell phones would have that same glass as the case. They're looking for uses on how to use it in an interior or architectural manner. So we get to play with materials. Sometimes they pay us to play with these materials, which is really quite ideal. But on the most part, we really just can't help ourselves. We're doing some work with a client to work with jade and glass. BC, or British Columbia, has a lot of jade. So we're working with one of the jade mines to take really their garbage and turn it into something decorative. So we got to try different ideas. This is based on cedar from BC. It was extremely difficult to figure out how to take a wood grain and turn it into a moldable material. This is not our studio, but this is Guardian Glass. So the roll that you see is our pattern. Molten glass is 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. This is really all about trying ideas and pushing for it, and and trying to achieve something out of it. I studied with a Bauhaus instructor from Aachen, Germany, Ludwig Schaffrath, who's since passed away, and he and a guy named Johannes Schreider are really the fathers of the contemporary glass movement as we would know it today. Schaffrath gave us directives in design and responsibility and to use the word truthfulness. So he said glass should pay homage to the interior space. It should work in the space, should elevate the space, and should make it very, very enlightening to the users of the space. The glass then should be relevant to the architecture. It should be part of the architecture in a way that it enhances but works in conjunction with the architecture. It should be relevant to the community. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Our cathedrals today are the malls, they're corporate towers. So, we're working to the directions of some of the corporate ego, in a sense, for good or for bad. And he said, well, it should be relevant to the community. And I thought, oh, that's fantastic. And, that's all about human scale. I didn't know what human scale was then, but it really kind of triggered on me. Then the last part, which I thought was really amazing, is that it should be relevant for 200 years. And then that lost me. To be relevant, to even be able to be relevant for 200 years is totally beyond me, but it's a goal. And I think it's a goal for all of us. And, let's make enduring things, whether it's design, whether it's something we make, but let's make things endure and last and be sustainable. So thank you very much.